All right guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're doing hamstrings and back, but I'm gonna be prioritizing calves to start because I need better calves. So I like doing them at the beginning because that way I can give them full intensity, put as much effort as I can into them. Whereas if I put them at the end, I kind of start to neglect them and not do as many sets as I should. It's really why we're prioritizing, because calves are important on stage, especially in like a back double shot, back lat spread, which is pretty much what we're working on. We're working on the posterior chain today. So let's start with calves. All right, so we're gonna start with this calf machine here, and then we're probably gonna do some seated calf after. And we're aiming for about 4 total sets here, 4 sets there, so 8 total. I think people tend to, especially when they put it at the end, they tend to only do like 3 or 4 working sets, which really, it's not enough for the calves, especially if you want them to grow. If you want them to remain the same, yes, you can keep doing your 4 sets, but if you actually wanna see some growth in your calves, you gotta put a little more effort into it and also do a few more sets. So with seated calf, one thing I see a lot of people doing wrong is they're actually not putting their knee forward enough. They're kind of sitting too far back. You also want the knee to be over the toe, so you're actually getting a better stretch in the calf. I'm leaning forward first, so when I start to fail, I start to lean back just to give it a bit more momentum so I can actually take it to true failure. The calves can take a beating, so you gotta do more than 3 or 4 sets a workout. You can do them more frequently than probably any other body part. So I try to do them at least 3 times a week, I guess depending on how sore they are. All right, so we're starting with hamstrings, seated hamstring. This is if you have this, which I guess a lot of gyms wouldn't, but this is by far my favorite hamstring curl. I'll show you a couple new things from what I originally showed you guys how to do this. There's kind of like levels to, I guess, the form when it comes to building really good hamstrings. So I gotta give a shout out to Mike, who's also the guy I train legs with. He is extremely knowledgeable. A lot of the things I've learned with hamstrings is through him, so I gotta make sure I give credit to the guy. What we're doing here, so a lot of you have taught you how to keep relaxed and more obviously explosive concentric, you're squeezing. But now what we're gonna do, just to make it a little more challenging and actually get an even better contraction in the hamstring, you're gonna wanna squeeze your adductors together, even as you're pressing. So you actually see when I'm doing my concentric phase, I'm almost popping up. You can see me kind of pop up a bit. That's from squeezing the hamstrings together. It's a lot harder. Like I said, it's more like levels to this. Trying to teach someone to do, the explosive concentric, keeping the body relaxed, keeping the toes pointed. There's like steps to this. So what we're doing now is taking it to another level so I can get an even better contraction in the hamstring. And I can really do 3 sets and get all I really need out of this machine. So even as the weight gets heavier, we're trying to do the same form as we did with lighter weights. So that's what we do feeder sets, is to really get in the habit of that explosive concentric, that squeeze, that controlled negative. We're trying to apply that to a heavy weight because progressive overload is only relevant in the proper form. So just because you're going heavier doesn't mean much when you're breaking form throughout the whole set. So because my Tuesday leg day it's so grueling, and it takes me honestly probably 5 days, like even today it's Saturday and I'm still kind of sore from it, that we don't do a full hamstring day. We just kind of do things like hip thrusts, seated leg curls, and we'll do RDLs. So we're not gonna be doing anything that's gonna be too taxing on the body, because if you can't recover, you're not gonna be growing. So it's more strategic what we're doing. So we're doing a little bit of hamstrings, and then we're gonna finish off a little bit of back, and that'll be it for today. So you see a lot of guys with good quads and then a very weak hamstring. So even on a quad dominant day, you gotta understand that a lot of the negative movements, say for example, when you're squatting, yes, it's more quad dominant, but you're still working glutes, you're still working your hamstring, especially if you control the negative and you're actually squatting deep. So it's a lot of the indirect work that builds a very good hamstring. So not so much the seated leg curls, but more your squatting, your leg press, RDLs, some of the more important ones. But I think a lot of people tend to almost prioritize hamstrings too much with your seated leg curls, your lying leg curls, which are great, but it's not gonna build that girth, especially in like your side chest shots, tricep shots, and then the back double shots. Hip thrusts. Key points when you're doing a hip thrust, keep the chin tucked. That way we're not hyperextending. Also, when I'm in the movement, especially as the weight gets heavy, we don't want to start forcing and pushing back when we're thrusting. We actually want to act almost as if we're thrusting forward. So that way you're staying under the weight, you're getting a better glute contraction, and it's going to make it harder, but I'm telling you, it'll make things a lot better. You'll feel way more on the glutes. So when I'm here, I'm not pushing back, I'm almost pushing forward, squeezing the glutes. Oh my God, that is insane. That burn is wild. I have a lot of my athletes tell me that they feel it way more in their lower back, and that's again because you're pushing back against the pad. So almost like you're thrusting forward in order to get a better glute contraction. So it's little tweaks that actually make a huge difference. And if you're having trouble with it, start a bit lighter, slowly pyramid up each week. The one indicator, especially if you're doing like a barbell or a Smith machine, you'll notice that the bench almost starts to slide back. And that's because you're pushing back into the pad too much. So like I said, when you're coming down, almost like you're thrusting forward more to get that better glute contraction. Like any muscle group, breathing is just as important. So inhaling on the eccentric, exhaling, and squeezing on the concentric phase. So I still see so many people holding their breath, and the more you make it a habit, or the more you keep doing it, the more you're gonna make it a habit. So try and break that down, focus on the breathing, you're gonna get a better contraction, and you're not gonna fatigue as quickly either. All right, I'm gonna go over form again with this. I find it to be a pretty complicated exercise to really execute perfectly, because like I've said, I've told you guys, keeping the knees slightly bent, pushing the glutes back, chest is high, core is elongated, but also keeping the shoulders back, not letting them collapse forward as you're doing this. And it gets a lot more challenging than you think. So you're trying to remain in this position, so glutes go back and coming up. But you're not allowing anything to roll forward. You're gonna keep all the tension on the glutes and hams. And those guys doing the goddamn 4 plates, stop doing 4 plates. The only guys I see it doing properly are like Hunter Labrada. I've seen Hollingshead. Those guys are freaks. A lot of guys cannot do these properly, especially for 4 plates. It's not an RDL, you're doing a deadlift. So you kind of see at the end, start to roll forward a bit. It's hard to maintain that form. Whole purpose is to keep getting better. I make errors too. So just so you guys can visually see it, so these are slightly bent, chest is high, core is elongated. I'm trying to push back while core stays elongated, chest stays high. I'm not collapsing. The shoulders pulled back. So if you actually do this properly, you won't be able to go as low as you think, because to get a proper full hamstring contraction, you do not need to go all the way down. So with adductors, you wanna now focus on your feet. You wanna focus on obviously bringing the legs together. When we're doing this, it's not so much of an explosive concentric, it's more controlled squeezing. Control down, pause, squeeze. It's more squeezing throughout. Yeah, there's really not much to it other than really controlling the concentric, getting a good squeeze, controlling the negative. Instead of I see a lot of people just, it's almost super explosive. So make sure you're actually contracting the muscle, not just getting a good pump. I know I keep talking about it, with feet back, it's gonna help you stay more upright. Even when you have your hand on the weight, don't allow the wrist to collapse downward. You almost wanna be hooking the weight and staying in this position. You actually get a better stretch. And then thirdly, keeping the elbows in on the eccentric. So you're up, and when you come down, obviously it's gonna flare a bit, but you almost gotta reset each time to get that stretch. All right, that's a wrap for today. Did my back and hamstrings, did calves to start. Finish off a little bit of posing. I'm actually gonna do a little more posing after this, but I'm trying to do at least 15, 20 minutes after each workout, 15, 20 minutes in the morning, because we're 17 weeks out now. So there's a big difference between just doing your general cardio to get in shape, and then there's your posing cardio. It's a lot different. So if you don't practice enough, I'm telling you, you're gonna gas out on stage. You're gonna sweat on stage. You're gonna be heavy breathing. So my advice, practice early in your prep and practice throughout. Because I've done it in the past where I didn't practice enough and I got on stage and I was almost scared to get back up there because I just wasn't ready. So, and especially if you're doing well, the judges are gonna try and almost expose you, see if you can hang with the big boys. So you better be ready for that posing. Make sure you guys stay tuned because it's 17 weeks out, guys. I'm so excited. Still eating over 5,000 calories a day, still dropping a bit of weight. Might get a cheat meal this weekend, whatever the coach says, but yeah, guys, stay tuned.